Hi art nerds, happy holidays. So I have another Paperchild tutorial for you guys today. We are on part 2 of the Gingerbread Kids tutorial, and I'm going to show you guys how to create this adorable little standee. So if you're not familiar with Paper Children is a type of paper craft where you take your two-dimensional characters, like these here, you cut them out, you assemble them, and you basically turn them into 2.5D characters or flat characters who can interact with the real world. And these two cuties, well, at least one of them is a character in my comic, 7-inch Kara. It's a charming story about tiny people, so it only makes sense that I would be creating paper crafts that utilize tiny people. So you can read that for free at 7inchkara.com. I'd love to hear what you guys think of it. So the materials you're going to need for today are pretty straightforward and many households have them, but if you don't have them, Dollar Tree will have almost everything you need. So I'm going to be using an XActo Blade, a pair of scissors, double stick tape, single-sided tape, tongue depressors or Popsicle Sticks, and you can also use a tape runner. I would recommend not using glue for this project as the extra moisture tends to make the paper warp. So as I have mentioned in every other Paperchild tutorial this Christmas season, I cannot cut a straight line to save my life, so I'm using a paper cutter to do my cutting for me. It's totally fine if you don't have a paper cutter, just as it's totally fine if you have a Cricut or other cutting machine and would prefer to use that to do your cutting. I recommend if you are working along at home, if you print the line art that I've included down in the description below, that you print it on cardstock or 90-pound paper. If you are doing the printable where you just need to cut it out and color it, I would recommend, again, cardstock or another heavier paper. So I used the paper trimmer to trim off the excess paper. I'm going to set that aside. I'll use it either in this tutorial or in another Paperchild tutorial. I'm going to be doing Paperchild tutorials every day until Christmas. So if you enjoy this kind of stuff, if you enjoy these kind of activities, you're going to be able to find a new one every day. So now I'm just cutting off the excess paper using a large pair of scissors. This is going to make it easier to handle. As I've mentioned in my other Paperchild tutorials, you can do what's known as a halo cut, where you leave a halo of paper around the characters. That's a little bit easier to do. Or you can do what's known as fussy cutting, where you cut an exact outline around the characters. I'm going to be doing what's known as fussy cutting, and I'm going to use an XActo Blade to help me out with this. Now, if you are one of my younger audience members, hi, now is a great time for you to get a parent, a guardian, someone older with their XActo Blade certifications to help you cut this out. I wouldn't want any of you guys cutting yourselves. I struggle to use XActo Blades as well, but I am an adult, and if I cut myself, I am only responsible to me. So if you are younger and watching this, please go get some help. Get someone else to do your XActo Blade cutting for you. And I'm using this tiny little knife to basically do all the really difficult cuts. So areas in the hair, any islands within the paper, things like that, I'm using the XActo Blade. And I am cutting on the back of my sketchbook. I'm using that as a cutting surface. Of course, you can use a cutting mat. I would recommend, though, that you don't cut directly on your tabletop, as that's very likely to ruin your tabletop. So now that I'm finished with the XActo Blade, I thought I would try out this new tiny pair of embroidery scissors I purchased just for paper crafts. I thought they would be able to get in there and do a better job of cutting those tiny areas. They're actually pretty terrible, so I end up using my larger cutting scissors more than I thought I would. A nice pair of sharp scissors is actually less likely to cut you than a pair of dull scissors that you have to hack away at the paper. So I'm just going to cut out my gingerbread boy and his Lilliputian friend, and I'll check back in with you guys. So now that the pair are cut out, it's time to do a little bit of paper engineering. This is, I believe, the second standee we've done. Day one, the candy cane thief also was a standee, and basically we're creating a triangular base. Now there's a few different ways to do this. If you want to hide that base, you could do two smaller triangles. I originally was going to do two smaller triangles, and then I realized that just one of these triangles works well enough. And basically I just took one of my long strips of paper that I'd cut previously and I folded it into thirds. And then I taped the front, and as you can see, I'm cutting two small pieces of paper. I'm going to tape those on the inside, and that's going to help make a more secure join. Actually, I think I taped those on the outside. I apologize. Anyway, when it comes to paper engineering, it is all about creating stability. So I'm using some double stick tape to create our triangular base. Boy, double stick tape is great. If you can't find it at Dollar Tree, you can probably find it at CVS or Walmart, or any office supply store will have it. So now that I've made my base, I am using some Popsicle Sticks to create some stability in my figurines. They're just made of paper after all. We don't want them bending in half. And this is Southeast Louisiana and it's very humid here. So giving a little bit of extra stability is a great idea. Popsicle sticks are really cheap. I got a 100 pack at Dollar Tree, so I'm definitely going to be using them. And I am applying the double stick tape along the back of my popsicle stick, folding over the excess, and then pressing firmly so it really adheres to my watercolor paper here. I ended up using 3 popsicle sticks, and now I'm going to use some single-sided tape. If you don't have that, you can use washi tape or masking tape, just to secure my popsicle sticks a little bit more. Popsicle stickles. It's such a hard word to say when you're saying it over and over again. So I realized that where they're holding hands, that's kind of a weak point. So I'm using some more of the scrap watercolor paper. I've actually stacked 2 on top of each other. I used some double stick tape to adhere it, and now I'm using some single-sided tape just to kind of secure that. So now it's time to construct our base. This is where I decided to use 1 triangle rather than 2. It's going to make for a less obtrusive base. And I have here a thin rectangle of the watercolor paper that I saved. I'm going to use a little bit of this foam tape, also purchased at Dollar Tree, and no, they are not a sponsor. And what that's going to do is it's going to make both of Tanner's feet the same width, so we can easily adhere our triangular base. So I'm applying a little bit of the double stick tape to all 3 of the popsicle sticks, and I'm also going to put it on top of the foam tape because that foam tape is not actually that adhesive. And then I'm going to press down my rectangle of paper so that we get a really good seal. Now, my gingerbread man was not quite on even footing with Tanner, so I just removed it, flipped it over so I can see what I'm doing, and pressed it down again. Nothing wrong with correcting mistakes when you make them or admitting you made a mistake. So again with the double stick tape, I'm putting a long piece of double stick tape on our triangle, and I'm going to adhere it to the middle of our rectangular base, making sure to press firmly. I'm using 2 pieces of single-sided tape just to kind of seal the join between our rectangle of paper and our triangle of paper. So I need to make my base a little bit more secure, and I need to provide some counterweight so this thing will balance. So I'm creating a small floor to the base, again using some of our scrap watercolor paper. I measured it out against the paper and I trimmed it to size. And I'm going to use some single-sided tape to adhere it. And then after I've adhered it, I'm going to secure it even more by wrapping the single-sided tape from the bottom all the way to the bottom interior, making sure to press the tape firmly against the paper. This isn't a hard activity, but it is one that requires a little bit of finesse and a little bit of patience. But really, paper engineering is so much fun. It's so much fun to make 2-dimensional objects just kind of come to life. And making paper children is a hobby that I really enjoy. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it with me. Hopefully this series has inspired you to turn your own characters into 2.5D objects that you can take photos of, pose with, or even interact with. So here is our base. Here is our base with the paper attached. And now we need to add a little bit of weight. So here is where you're going to need about $1.50 in quarters. If you don't have quarters, you can use pebbles, paper clips, basically any small weighty object that you can tape or glue down to your paper will work well here. So I'm using quarters. I'm going to wrap them in single-sided tape just to make a little package, 2 quarters per package. I'm going to tape 2 of those quarters way into the pointy end of our triangle, and then I'm going to tape the other 2 little quarter packages on either side of it. So this is going to provide a counterweight that allows our paper figurine to stand up on its own. So as you guys can see, the materials we use today aren't too complicated. They're definitely not expensive and they're not hard to find. You'll find links in the description to a line art printable that you can color yourself, as well as a colored printable that you can print out and cut out if you don't feel like cutting, or if you just want to get some practice in assembling this. Now, the truly important part, finding the perfect place to put it. I enlisted the help of my husband in placing our little paper friends, and he decided that amongst the presents was the best spot. I gotta say, if I was a Lilliputian, that's like one of my top 5 hiding places would be among all the festive papers and bows. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope you guys will consider sticking around, subscribing, and checking out the rest of my Paperchild tutorials. I'm releasing a new one every day until Christmas. If you enjoyed this tutorial, hit the big old thumbs up button and leave me a comment telling me what you liked about this video. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy holidays, guys!